Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to have a bit of a serious talk. Clearly, by the name of the video, something needs to change, and it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult for some people to hear. I may just sound like a whiner, which is also what I have to put up with. You know what? We just hear, but I'm going to be very honest with you about what I'm thinking, what I've been feeling about the situation. And it has to do with the quality of indie books, the quality of book self-promotion, and a little bit of the way that people treat readers and some of the experiences that I've had this year, the last couple of years, that have not only made me more cynical, but I'm going to have to change the way that I personally do things, which includes not accepting requests or recommendations anymore from authors about their own books. And I've seen some people get really, really mad about telling authors, look, I'm not interested in listening to you talk about your own book and you pitching your own book. And they go, but aren't you a reader? Don't you just praise writers? Because like we're the ones that give you stuff. Look, honey, you're not the one that gives me stuff. I am spending money and time on you to see what you make. And then maybe, I'll be a fan of your thing. But there is a lot of using people's times, rushing in before people are ready. And there's the novice thing. And then there is the just complete lack of respect for readers in many a case. But before we get into that, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, you may not want to after this. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lamwai, the monthly prompt writing contest where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creative genius. However, this month, we are doing the third annual cringe stream where you write the cringiest story that you can think of. Details are on the community tab. And the last video, I think we're going to do it on New Year's Eve. We're going to read your guys' cringe. And it's going to be anonymous. So, because we're going to vote on the best cringe or our favorite cringe in the Loinies next year. So feel free to let whatever freak flag fly, however you want to interpret cringe, that is up to you. Get ready. It is just about having fun. And, we've all got these cringy urges of like the first draft or just like these things that we want to write, that show nobody. Well, now is your chance to like get that out of your system. Just have fun. And just my only request is that it is readable. Like barely, just try. Just do that for me. The third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including the local library upon request. My newest novel, Body More Zero, came out at the end of October. Check it out with these fine gentlemen over here. And with that said, let's jump into the topic. So it may or may not be well known that I went to graduate school for creative writing. I know, hold your laughter. Because I very much love writing. I've always loved writing, and I wanted to not only improve my writing, but I wanted to force myself to finish writing something. That's where I finished writing Dead End Drive, or I technically got it to a point. I didn't really finish writing it until like 2020, and it went through multiple cycles after that because there were things that grad school is just not helpful for with that book since it was the type of humor that it is, but I digress. I went to graduate school to better learn the craft, to better understand the craft, to learn how to break things down. And that's partially that partially goes into how I read, but so does just my mentality, the way that I think, and the way that we all think goes into how we read. If we read more emotionally, if we read more logically, what we kind of pay attention to, if it's world building, if it's character, if it's politics, like who we are goes into how we read. And so I have always been a part of this literary community of literary citizens, because even before that, I was writing short stories. I was working on role playing in undergraduate school. I took a theater writing class because, I was in the theater program and I had always been writing since the day that I had my first writing assignment in elementary school. I never stopped writing. And I just looked for different places to do it. And since I was taking theater in undergraduate, I was like, clearly I'm going to go to a playwright class. And then here we are. It was only at the end of undergraduate that I was like, wait a second, I can try to write books as like a full thing instead of just doing it as a hobby on the side. So this is where we are, is finishing actual books now. It's a struggle. But So I've always been a literary citizen, which means I've been constantly involved with critiques and with criticisms. And so that has been sitting in rooms with people, having read their stuff, and then giving feedback on those things, whether it was an undergraduate when I did the short story writing workshops, whether it was in the playwriting where we did the workshops, even in acting, we gave feedback when we would watch people do their monologues, or, because I was part of the stage plays, you would still get notes at the end of rehearsal from your director that would be like, do this and this and this. So I'm used to that. Then you went into grad school and you still sat in your smaller circle where you would get feedback. And so once I finished school, I was looking for more opportunities to do that and still be part of the indie community, which had me be open to taking people's requests of, hey, will you read my book? And I was doing book reviews. I had been doing book reviews like journals, or like blog posts at first for a while. I think since I was in graduate school, I was doing blog posts for a way to like express myself, because I needed somewhere to talk because I couldn't really share my opinions anywhere that I was. And then that turned into blog posts about books or book reviews. And then that eventually turned into video book reviews. And a short while into that, I was contacted by somebody who had written a YA sci-fi. It was more like a space opera. And she was interested in me reviewing her book or talking about her book. And so I went and purchased the book because, generally speaking, I don't really like to accept free books because I don't want there to be an expectation, and I don't want people to feel like they are being cheated, like because they deserve some specific response because they gave me a book. So I generally buy the book. Even if somebody gifts me the book, like the book's over there, I generally go and buy another copy of it, a digital copy. To make up for the one that I had received. And then usually when I'm done reading the book, I go and drop it in a library or a free library so other people can find the book and I still have a copy of it, right? Unless I like really love the book. But that's my way of sharing and participating as a literary citizen, is in that way. But in general, I have not liked being given a book because I don't want authors to think that they're going to get a certain response, that they deserve a certain response or they are owed a certain response because they gave me a free book. And so that included this YA. And so I read this book. I spent about a week doing it because I read slower since I take a lot of notes. And then at that time, I was also refining all of my notes. So not only would I do a chapter by chapter breakdown, this is why I do book reviews the way that I do, is chapter by chapter breakdown. And the point of that specifically was so that authors could know how their book was being perceived, what was being seen as the important plot lines that somebody was following. And so then that author could determine if that was what they were trying to focus on, if that was the reaction they were expecting or not. Because I can't tell an author that they wrote something correctly or not. There are so many different ways to write a book. There are so many different focuses. There are so many different personalities, so many different ways to write. And not every reader is going to be the best reader to help you pull out your personality, your beliefs, what you're trying to do with that book. But all I can do is tell you how I read it. And you can then determine if, we're talking author to author, determine if that is what you were going for or not. I've had people tell me how they've interpreted my stories, and it is never my place in general to tell them that they are wrong unless they ask me what I was going for. But it tells me any response, any critical response period or analysis tells me how something was read by that person. And I can determine, is that what I was going for? Is that not what I was going for? And then how many people had that response versus had the response that I wanted? Because you will never have a 100% response, a 100% read on a story the way that you want it. I mean, look at ACOTAR. I'm using ACOTAR because it's a very, very, very popular book. Millions of people have read it. You're still going to have a portion of people, and it is highly rated. I think it's over a 4-star. You're still going to have people that read Tamlin as abusive, and you're going to have people that read Tamlin as the victim. And you're never going to get 100% because people's perceptions are different. People are bringing different experiences to whatever. So you have to determine if the majority of your target audience is responding the way that you thought. And I usually think that a reader's response is interesting because of what it tells you about what the reader perceived. I've had a couple of interesting responses with Joey and Wayland and Jag that I can't say any of them are wrong because they're not. It's very interesting, but they're all very different. And so it's very interesting to hear discussion, at least for me, on stories. Now, getting back to how this started over here with the YA book, is I I was doing very much since I was fresh out of grad school, and I was doing a very specific breakdowns. So there's the summary to let authors know how their story was being read beat by beat. And then I had big glomps at the bottom that were separated in like world building, character, plot, structure, pacing. I had all of these larger things that I would then describe how something worked well or didn't work well, and then references and describe many of the major characters. And then I would write those notes as I went. Then I would rewrite them and revise them once I had all of the information. And so that would take me a lot of time, as you can imagine. And so once I finished reading this YA book that the woman had contacted me to read, I said, hey, here is a copy of what the review is going to look like. Did you still want me to do a video on it? And she said, no, don't do a video. So even though at the beginning, when she said, I know what you do and I would be happy to have any sort of response, that was clearly a lie, because the only appropriate response would have been a positive. And because it was critical, she didn't want it. So there goes a week of my time used on this when it was asked of me. And that's not the only time that had happened. There was a YouTuber earlier this year. Actually, I had two different YouTubers contact me this year, much bigger than I am. One of them was Sam Fennah. His book, Amygdala, was read earlier this year. I spent like 3 months reading that book. And I was contacted via DM, asked to read the book. And I was told, I know that it is not your thing, but I think that it could change your mind about this genre, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I think that it could change how you feel about it all. And I was very skeptical. I think I was asked to read it last year. And it took me until this year to read it because I really just didn't want to read it. It was not my thing. And it being as thick as it was, that's a time commitment. And so eventually I said, okay, because I've been saying I'm going to read it for a while now. So I put aside everything else that I wanted to read his book. And then I had to keep doing like small books in between because it was taking me so long to get through. And this is where I get really irritated, because I was looking at the comments on that video, on the first video for Amygdala, and it's apparent, and somebody said that he took our private DMs and shared them with his group wherever. So apparently that's where some of the defense is coming from. And then was just accusing me of a smear job. And all I did for that book is what I've done for over 100 other books on this channel. Like, I was asked to read the book. I was asked for my honest opinion. I gave my honest opinion. I did to it what I did to every other book. And this is where it gets confusing for me, because I do the same thing for every single book. And I get some random person that comes over and says, oh yeah, I've seen stuff. Here, do mine. I totally want whatever it is that you actually specifically do. And then I do it. And then I am accused of being cruel. There were specifically DMs after the first video went up that was accusing me of being cruel and abusive, and that this wasn't a normal book review, that this was something else, something so much worse, something trying to destroy him. And you'll see stuff in the comments on that first video as well that are accusing me of trying to destroy Sam Fennah. Hey, look, I might have done a 6-hour video on this book because it's over 1,000 pages. I didn't want to spend that much time on it. That's how much time I had to spend on it in order to share all of the information that would express why I responded to the book the way that I did, or to express the reviews, the informations that I had, to express the views or the criticisms that I had on that book. And those are some of the reasons why I do long synopses like I do, because if I just skip to doing my criticisms, then my criticisms or my comments in general don't really make sense because you don't have the context for it. Now, I am never saying that any of my thoughts or opinions are the only one, are the correct one. All I can do is say that they belong to me. They are the way that I interpreted something. And can I interpret things incorrectly? I definitely can, and I definitely do. And that is the point of having a conversation. But you're also going to end up with different readers reading different things. And some authors can't stand that. And then to turn that into some sort of attack when you are the one that came to me to ask me to invest in your story. At the same time, when I said, I will purchase it, and you go, no, you need to see the physical copy. I'm going to send you a physical copy, even when I purchased a digital copy myself, it felt controlling. And I tried, and I never said anything on a lot of this. I kept it very quiet because I think that it was a private matter. But what pisses me off is somebody with an account of over 300,000 subscribers is going to come to me. At the time I had less than 5,000, and then ask for my time, knowing that what you do is not what I am interested in because you said as much in the comments. And then you throw a fit when I give you a response that is not what you want. And that includes us having a conversation in private about how he was pushing to have a voice chat or a video conversation to discuss the book. And I never agreed specifically to do that. I said it was on the table. And as our conversation went on, and it turned from us sharing, this is the perspective that I have on this story, to him trying to correct me and then calling me too stupid to get it, I determined I don't feel comfortable being on a voice chat with this. I did get bombarded with voicemails that were insinuating I was too stupid to understand. And how could I not get this? I'm supposed to be smart. I'm supposed to be a book review channel. And so this might seem like a side thing. This might seem like a really weird rant. Like I said, something needs to change, because this is not the only time that I have had authors approach me and then get mad at me when after they say they will take any response. They just want to see what a response is like. I had another YouTuber a couple of months ago, earlier in this year, who DM'd me. The book is not public. And so it was a beta read, and asked for my feedback. And I offered to read 3 chapters. I don't know this person, but I offered to read 3 chapters because it's always just what I've done. And they send me 4 chapters, which took the story from being 80 pages to like 120 pages. And then I spent all week, instead of reading a book that I could talk about on this channel, reading that book, writing feedback, and then doing a more formal feedback form with examples and discussion points, like I did in my old form of book reviews. I get an okay, thanks, and then I never hear again. So that's just a use of me and my time. And for what? I don't know. And then you've got Avalon Timefall, which I also read on this channel. It was a book that was sent to my P.O. box. And so then I purchased a copy. I read it here. And the author then sent me a long email to tell me everything that I got wrong and why I was wrong. And so this is the thing that needs to change. I then read a book earlier in the last week, and then, from the point of posting this, I read a book in the last week where the formatting of the book was terrible. It felt like a first draft. It felt like a summary. It wasn't well written. And the author sent me the book to read. Then you had another one, this is in the same week, where somebody joined the server, specifically only not even saying hello to me when they joined the server, because you have to confirm that you're not a robot when you join, but asking about posting a link to their book. Then when they're told, yeah, you can post it in promotions, they only go to post in promotions, which whatever, you can go and do that. But then we're having discussions in other threads, and they come into the other threads to say, go buy my book, go try my book, do my book, because you're talking about how all books suck, go do my book. You click into that book, there's no formatting in that book. You go into the Amazon page, there's no paragraph formatting. There's no formatting between when different characters are talking. There are sound effects with asterisks in the middle of paragraphs. It is as if this person never read a book, doesn't know what they look like. And it's not the first time this has happened. I've had people over the years tell me that they don't read anything contemporary. I just kind of translate that into I don't really read. And then they send me their book and their chapter. Every single chapter is 1 paragraph. No indentation, no paragraph separation, nothing. And this needs to change. You have so many people who, for a variety of reasons, are rushing out there to get their stuff out there as fast as humanly possible. And I don't know if it is sheer hubris or if it is an ignorance that they don't know what books look like, that they are putting them out in this state and then thinking that they look good enough to send to people, to have people critically analyze them. And I'm not trying to be mean. I really don't want to be mean. I don't want to crush people's spirits, but I'm sent this stuff and then I spend so much time reading it and honestly responding to it and wanting people to feel heard who have never felt like they could be heard or like it was really hard to get anybody to talk about their work. And I, as a reader who is open to reading things that are outside of my genre, just feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I just feel like people only see an opportunity to use somebody to try to get specifically a positive confirmation, an ego stroke, not for everybody, but for enough that it makes me no longer want to accept requests from anybody to read anybody's books. I put aside a lot of what I read. I put aside a lot of the books that I would like to read, or finding stuff that is on my reading list, finding stuff that I have put on the reading list years ago to have discussions or to discover certain books or workbooks. Like I still have that Margaret Atwood book I still have to read mixed in with other books. And now I have 2 Stuart Turton books that I would like to read because I like the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. You know, I've been saying that I want to read the Dark Creator and the Dark Scientist for months now. I've been saying that I've wanted to read A Cold Dish since the beginning of this year. I've been saying I want to read Rock in the Sand, Ribbons in the Sand since last year. I've had a couple other authors that have sent me their books that I have said I was going to read, and I just keep pushing stuff back that I actually want to read for the interest in the content that I'm not reading because I'm taking requests from authors for books that I don't care about, and for authors that, frankly, I don't feel like they care about me either as a reader. And it makes me feel like trash. And I know that nobody has to care about my nobody has to care about my feelings. So like I accept that entirely, and it is entirely my fault not telling people no. But the door is now closing. I am not going to be accepting books from people anymore because I frankly think a lot of people are abusing the system. I think a lot of people are rushing books out there because they have seen other poorly written stories and they go, you know what? I can write a poorly written story and throw it out there. And so there are also people that don't even try to learn the craft, the bare minimum of the craft. They don't try to get critique partners. They don't try to connect with other authors. They just try to look for people that they can use. And then they throw their book out there and say, I'm using the marketplace and I'm waiting for reviews to come in that'll tell me how I can become a better writer. I'm sorry, but a book reviewer is not your critique partner. Their job is not to tell you how to become a better writer. And if you are setting out garbage that is untested, unedited, and you are waiting for somebody else to make you a better writer, you are having them pay to make you a better writer and spend time writing a long essay about what you did wrong to make you a better writer, that is an abuse of the system, and it is disrespectful to the readers. It is disrespectful to the author-consumer relationship. Now, if you're going to call it a beta testing book out there, like there are plenty of people that do indie games that then you have, this is an alpha, this is a beta, you can test it, you can give feedback on it, whatever, perfectly fine. Do that with your books. But throwing it out on Amazon and then being like, this is a finished product, and then saying, actually, I'm waiting for hopefully feedback to come back to me in this format. Not only that, on top of that, you have many authors. I have talked to them. I know some that say that they wait for feedback to come back in on the reviews. Well, then go back to the stories I was just telling of being shit-talked by Sam Fennah and his fans for giving critical reviews, or the times, or like with the Avalon Timefall, where people come to me saying, oh no, I just want to hear feedback. And then you do, and then they can't handle it. The thing to do when you receive feedback, critical feedback specifically, is just to say thank you. And then reflect on if that is what you were looking for or not looking for, and then go look for other readers whom you can trust to have that response. And at the very least, you can assume everything that I say is dumb. I introduce myself as an idiot on purpose. I am a fool. I see things the way that I see them. I put them out there the way that I see them. I tell you the logic behind how I see things, specifically so we can converse, because you can see how I think, and then you can inform me, we can share perspectives, and I can learn, and maybe you can learn, you don't have to learn, but at least by sharing my thoughts and how I logically consider things, you're going to be able to better understand the conclusions that I come to, maybe. But in all of this, I also feel like a lot of people really don't give a crap about what other people think about other perspectives, and they really don't want to hear it. They will really just tell you, hey, I want what you normally do. I would love to just have a little bit of attention on this book. And that's not ever what they mean. Now, you'll notice on this channel, when I do critical reviews, I never say, I read this, so you don't have to. I am kind of cheeky when I read books. I kind of mix giving feedback and then just kind of having fun with it. I can exaggerate things. I can be playful, but I still try to be respectful. But I don't just say, so you don't have to, because I still constantly encourage, even if it's not my thing, it might be somebody else's thing. Just because I'm critical doesn't mean I'm going to tell anybody else to not go and read any book on this channel, because guess what? People who have also read the book are fun to talk to because we have different perspectives. We have same perspectives. We can discuss the characters deeper. And that is one of the reasons why I also share the synopses the way that I do. They're not perfect. And the more that I talk about a story, the more details I give about a story, the more it opens me up to, you're an idiot. How did you read it that way? Thank you. I know. So something's going to change, and it's just going to be my openness to reading things by other people. I'm glad if you're a writer and you're working on things, but I can't just accept people sending me their fiction anymore. I can't give people a chance anymore like I want to. Oh my gosh. And it takes me back to when I was on Minds, and I was in a writing group on there, and I was DM'd after doing a book review on this channel for Why Not Wichita, which we read on the Loin stream. And then I did a book review because back then I was doing book reviews on the Loin stream books just, to give them extra exposure and for people that didn't get to catch the Loin streams. And I got DM'd by somebody in that writing group telling me that I was not allowed to critique other people's books because it is us against the mainstream. And I said, I don't review politically, which doesn't seem to matter. Whether I'm talking about Shad's book or Chuck Tingle's book or Gretchen's book, everybody is assuming that I'm political on certain videos, which is very interesting, BT dubs. I don't have anybody really saying this kind of stuff on any of the ALA book list things, but it is stuff like Gretchen Felker Martin, Chuck Tingle, Critical Drinker, and Shad. So that really makes you think. But I try to read vastly. I don't try to pick on anybody. I also read a lot of indie books. I would say probably 60 to 70% of the books I've read this year are indie. And we'll go over that when I do the tiered list of all of the books that I've read this year in a synopsis. But things are changing. I would like to read more of the books that I would like to read. And if they turn out poorly, then I guess that's just how it is. But I'm not going to be as willing to just blindly accept people's requests that I read their books anymore, because I don't think that I can keep doing this. I don't think that I can keep getting trashed on when I am asked for a favor and then just feeling like trash because the only thing that I am good for is giving somebody else exposure and ego pats, because I get lied to all the time. Oh, I don't really want your opinion. I just want you to say that I'm great. I can't do that. I'm going to tell you what I see in the book. And there are some people that I have interacted with that I don't think that they could handle if I truly told them a response to their writing. And so there are a lot that come in to me to ask me to read their book and freak out. Another one that did that was the Something So Lovely author came in about the book, asked for it, and then got upset when I did a review. I can't. Authors want exposure, but they only want positive exposure, and they won't tell you that. Now, I'm not saying every author, but it's a risk that I don't feel like I can take anymore. Now, there are a couple of things. This was spawned on by some books that I've seen, and also by the guy that joined the server with his unedited book. But I would like to mention this video is long enough as it is for just being kind of a ranty video. So I have a couple of things that I wanted to mention specifically in response to a book that I have read more recently. Number one, please revise your books before selling them. Indie authors specifically, please edit your books before selling them. Whenever an indie book is given a chance from an unknown by an unknown, and it looks a certain way, it makes people less likely to try indies. I read a lot of indies, and I want to keep reading people's stuff, but I'm going to start giving a hard no to certain things when they look like garbage. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but if the formatting's not even there, what do you expect me to say? At the very least, before you publish, go and look at traditionally published books on Amazon so that you know you're getting industry standard, and then see how those are laid out and try to make your formatting match. Understand paragraphs. And people don't know what they don't know. And if that's how it is, I'm not going to read your book if it doesn't look bare minimum. And call that elitism, call that whatever, industry, whatever, I don't care. I don't want to waste that much time on books that don't give a shit anymore. Number two, the marketplace isn't a critique group. It isn't school. Or you can learn from book reviews. You can see things from book reviews that you didn't before. But I think that it is specifically disrespectful to readers, to the consumer base, to the marketplace, the venue that you are leaning into, to treat it like it is school or a crit group, to give you those peers that you didn't try to seek out yourself, and to require people to pay and then to use them to that specific purpose. You're not trying to entertain them. You're trying to get money. It's also unfair to the readers because so many authors are so hot and cold and so mean that you don't even know which ones are going to be receptive to your thoughts or which ones aren't. I hadn't even published my book review to the butt cracker yet when I was already blocked on Twitter by the author. I had never interacted with that author. I try to be nice in not discouraging writers from working on their stuff, even if it's something that is just not to my taste. But you have people buy this stuff. You send it to them. You ask them to spend their time on it. I think stuff like this undermines every author trying, and it creates distrust and resentment between the reader and the author. And it's nothing but a liability for anyone who reads indie authors, because not only is it a risk of, will I not like this book, but it's also, will this author attack me for it? Will this author's fans attack me for it? And I also think that it sends a message if you completely disregard somebody's reading preferences to just boost your book. Because it just shows that you don't care. And I cannot tell you how many times it's, oh, you just haven't read my book yet. Like, it will change your mind about all of us. Set your expectations appropriately. If you're breaking somebody's genre preferences, if you're breaking somebody's reading preferences, I assume people will just hate my stuff because my stuff is very specific in style. It is not commercial at all. But I love my characters. And that's what I will sell, is that I love my characters, I love the story, and it's going to be specific. I am just going to assume most people will hate what I do until they say that they like it, because it is much easier to cope with. But the last thing that you should be doing when contacting anybody about reading your books, and when you know that they don't like what you do, is saying, well, I'm going to disregard your preferences because mine will change your mind. That's like saying, look, you're only that sexuality because you haven't had the right poon/dick yet. So, like, try mine first. That's not a good sales pitch. It's not respectful. Furthermore, I don't want this to just sound like a doomer thing, because I have found a lot of great indie fiction. Some of my favorite books last year were indie. I am going to need to review all the books that I read this year to find it if how many of them were indie that I liked, because I know My Dark Vanessa and Kevin were not indie. But there are a lot of great indie books out there. There are also a lot of opportunists and scammers, and even more with the advent of AI, though there has been this kind of stuff before with people who don't really care, who just throw out, crafted genre fiction with ghostwriters, which that is what it is. They're just there. There are also a lot of newbies who rush to monetize a pastime or a first draft from learning. People misusing the marketplace to improve themselves instead of providing a product that they believe people will actually be happy with, because they can't get critique any other way, because they're mostly usually not even trying. And general market readers who pay for your content are not your test audience. I say this over and over again, and I don't want to be a mean person, but you don't. I say this over and over again, and I don't want to be a mean person, but you don't do yourself any favors by ignoring the preferences of the reader or by rushing your stuff out there before learning anything about the craft. It does a disservice to you, to the readers, to the marketplace. You're going to set yourself up for hurt by mismatching your reader and not knowing your craft, and then getting the critiques that you were not prepared for, that you thought you were prepared for, because it is an emotional thing. There are plenty of places online to publish unpolished things and attempt to get feedback, be it Wattpad, be it Royal Roads, be it Scribophile, be it other writing forums. Putting it in a store and pushing it to readers looking for polished work is beyond disrespectful and possibly borderline fraudulent. If you want to wonder why readers or creators won't give new authors a chance, look at how people misuse the marketplace. Look at the grifting. Look at the number of people who will sell writing who don't do the bare minimum of basic formatting. And you have to guess, and you're leaving them to guess whether you're lying about. And then you leave them to wonder if you're lying about the quality of your book, hoping that everybody is just too nice to say anything, or you really don't know because you don't even consume that genre, that medium. Because there is a thing in the writing community in general that is just like not criticizing people's work publicly, especially if it is an indie. Too many people generally will just not, because they don't want to hurt an indie's chance. And so then people just don't respond to indies when they're poorly written, and then they never hear anything. But then you do respond to things and people get upset. They're not treated the same as traditionally published books. And what I do here is I try to treat all books exactly the same. So in summary, why does it matter? It affects readers' perceptions of the quality of indie books. To me, it looks like a bunch of people who don't give a crap about writing are trying to con people with low effort stuff, since they've seen so much bad stuff and they think, hey, I can do that too. Writers who do this look like they don't read, don't know how to read. I can't tell that they don't know how to read. It floods the marketplace with works in progress instead of professional works. It abuses the relationship between readers, consumers, and authors. It makes readers less likely to pick up books from unknown authors or from authors who are requesting that their book be picked up. Indie authors especially end up looking sketchy and often like bullies when they do this. And that's not even getting into the side of the conversation. That is when readers become the bullies. And it messes up your expectations as an author, thinking that you obviously are going to please more people than you actually do, and then being shocked when you are hit with your first critical or negative review. Personally, I think poorly of authors who even use negative reviews for marketing on their own page, because often it just feels like ridiculing a reader who didn't get it. But that's a me thing. End of the day, writers are different. Readers are different. I've heard some say that writers can't be friends because everyone does things so differently, and it's such a personal thing that if you do it differently, it's going to be considered a personal attack if you disagree. It's just a lack of empathy. It's a lack of showing understanding, and it's a thing that is, well, you do things differently, so it must be an attack on me. I get to listen to things all the time that I disagree with. I read stories, I read nonfiction, I follow discussions that are specifically disagree with me, that specifically are distasteful, so that I can not only be exposed to this stuff and just get over it, but I've had it in my private life. I've had family members that are just terrible, that I've had to just not say anything. People specifically insult me, how I am, what I'm like, who they think I am, what my motives are. And I just have to ignore it. I always have. And that's what it comes to with this stuff as well. So if you are an author doing this stuff, know that it is more hurting you, because what's going to happen is more doors are going to close. I like books discussions. I like talking about the finite details of books. I like talking about character interactions. I like talking about themes. I like talking about intersections in the stories and the specifics. And I try to bring people on the adventures of those stories from my perspective, which is always going to be different than when somebody picks up a book. And I hope that in any of these videos that they give somebody who has already read the book a place to discuss the books that are discussed here. And if somebody is interested in seeing the books for themselves, they will always pick it up themselves, because none of my book reviews are meant to discourage anybody from exploring a book. But it is meant to give that book life in the form of maybe people were not going to read that book because it was not their thing, but they still want to know about it. I watch videos all the time that are for books or movies that I will never watch or read, but I am interested in seeing what they are about. So, I mean, that's that. But video is long enough. I'm sorry it's kind of sketchy, but I feel kind of sad. I've been actually really sad about this. And when I was reading the book the other day, it made me upset. Looking at it made me upset. And it just brought all of this flooding in. So this is where we are. Let me know what your thoughts are on this topic in the comments down below. With that said, have a great weekend and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left. Plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?